Welcome, everybody, to the show. Joining me is Mad Dog Dan Pancaldi with his fine glass of fine scotch.
You're damn right, bro. You're damn
That's
right.
right. Welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about hidden movement for at least 3.5 minutes tonight. So,
Okay, Artie, explain to me, what do you mean by hidden movement?
okay, so I'm going to use Flat Top as my example here because that's probably the hidden movement game that I've played the most over the years. It's a wonderful game, brilliant game. I love it. And in the case of Flat Top, you actually write down all your movements on like a log sheet. And then you can move like dummies, or there's different ways to handle it, but sometimes you can move dummies around and the enemy has to search. Some ways to handle this without actually requiring people to write stuff down, you might be seen in something like Atlantic Chase or
Space Empires.
Wouldn't call that hidden movement.
Well, they got decoys.
They do have decoys. That's just fog of war, though, right?
Okay,
and hidden movement is a way to kind of give you more fog of war than you normally have playing a war game. Let me remind everybody to like the video, go subscribe to Dan's channel. It's linked in the video description. Give him a thumbs up as well. Patreon, super chat, super stickers, all that jazz. So, my benchmark for this kind of thing is, I think the first hidden movement game I encountered was probably SPI's Star Force back in the day. This would have been in the 83 or something like that. I want to say it was after SPI was no longer around. And that's another one where you not only have hidden movement, you have plotted movement, where it's like simultaneous moves, and then you execute all the simultaneous moves. It's pretty interesting. I think Fifth Frontier War does that too from GDW.
Doesn't Starship Trooper have hidden movement with the skins?
With the bugs, I believe it does. That's a good point. I'm not sure what man, it's been 30 years since I've owned that thing. The now there Vishka, first of all, welcome to the stream. There's the GMT double blind games, which do have a variety of hidden movement as well. So
yeah,
there was a whole series. There's like at least 3 or 4 of them, I believe.
Mike Anthony is hidden tunnels in Starship Trooper. Yeah,
and there's also there's actually hidden setup in SL as well. You can have hidden units on setup, and then I have never played with the caves rules and stuff for sewers and stuff like that, so I can't even tell you how it works in ASL. But I know you can have hidden units on setup where you actually write the positions down and then you reveal them whenever you want.
What about Luftwaffe?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, it's planes flying past each other. You can see them generally.
Yeah, but don't you plot your course?
Maybe. I've never played Luftwaffe, actually. So there's 2 games called Operation Crusader with similar titles from GDW. And there's the big monster one from, I think, 77 or 78. And there's another one that's something Operation Crusader. And it's possible that one was double blind. So when we say Captain Asparagus mentions Kriegsspiel, now, of course, we're not talking about the Avalon Hill Kriegsspiel, which has a reputation that, let's say, is maybe not that positive. We're talking about the what we should probably call any of the varieties of free Kriegsspiel that are floating around right now. Nobody's really using the von Reiswitz rules anymore, but free Kriegsspiel, which is a little looser, much looserly, more loosely refereed, is real common. We do it at Origins every year. At least every year that Jim Ozarski shows up. Jim, why did you show up this year? He had reasons. We know, but we're still mad. So
hey, Farshad, salam alaikum.
Yeah, this is the one I'm thinking of. This is 8th Army Operation Crusader. There's a game called just Operation Crusader, and it's a big 10 counter sheet 5-map monster. So this is interesting. I've got no. I mean, I've leafed through Sniper years ago, so I have no real knowledge about it. And so we're talking about it.
Is it really that bad?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. The rumor is, I don't know how true this is. Rumor is that this was designed by Tom Shaw in 5 minutes. It's. Yeah, well, it's not. it's kind of double dipping in badness. Okay, so it's simultaneously nothing like an actual Kriegsspiel, which is a thing that people were actually doing back in the day. And it's also a fairly shitty game on its own. It's real abstract, which in itself is not a problem, but it's also shitty, and you can tell that it's designed in 5 minutes, or so is claimed. So now, if we got, yes, in fact, that today is trash day, so um, it's a curiosity. I think I not sure I even paid anything for it, so it's right now it's being used as a bookend. So yes, that's true. That is true. Yeah, it's not worth anybody's time. If you want simple games, back in the day, Avalon Hill even had plenty of simple games. That's not a problem. The the actually, this is a good point. Although there's no movement in Battleship, if you're confused about the concept, that is basically, it's hidden, right? You have limited intelligence on the enemy positions. I'm not going to go so far as to refer to Battleship as a war game, however. So
It's a war game.
yeah, Carl, you missed all the talking about hookers and blow. Sorry about that.
There you go. Demonetized.
So that's right. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, there's the call out to the GMT double blind games, which are double blind, not just hidden movement. But double blind games in general are an attempt to get around the sort of wargamers omniscience problem that has been identified for decades as a problem that wargamers have, right? I mean, you're trying in some sense to put yourself in the shoes of the historical commanders or persons on the scene. And it's a lot harder to do that because, frankly, you've got access to a lot more information in a conventional war game than those people had, right? There's literally too many examples to count in every conflict that I could think of. I don't think I'm familiar with Strike Force 1. I don't think Battleship is particularly bad. I mean, it's a game you play in 10 minutes with your dad, like somebody said above. So I'm not making a value judgment on that or Stratego or anything like that. I think Stratego is a little more of a war game than Battleship is. Battleship's just a guessing game to me. I wonder though, and I'm not going to look this up, whether BGG ranks Battleship as a war game or not.
I gotta check it out.
So, you're kind of opening yourself up to a little bit of a can of worms with something like Flat Top, because Flat Top's reasonably complicated on top of using hidden movement and plotting and all that other stuff. But it's just a totally brilliant game. But not truly double blind, although we run it that way every year at Winterfest. There's a side game of flat top that people kind of drop in and out of as they have time through their other stuff, and it kind of takes you a while to get back into the swing of that, because you got to start, okay, what do I got, here's all my what resources I have available, here's my planes, here's my bases, here's my ships if I'm controlling ships. I think last time we played I didn't have any ships. I controlled the land-based air. And of course, the objective is to find where the enemy is. And if you get lucky and figure out where this Coral Sea, right? So if you get lucky and figure out where the American carriers are, as the Japanese, then great, you send a strike force in and then kind of hope you surprise them, so that they can't get their planes off the deck.
Yeah, Artie, the category is children's game for Battleship, nautical, and war game.
Yeah, I'm not considering Battleship a war game.
Ah, come on.
It's a perfectly good guessing game. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with Battleship at all. I think it stretches the boundaries of credulity to say this is in the same category of game as Case Blue.
That's good. That's good.
So I'm just saying. Stratego is. I think Stratego is actually a war game, though. I'll give it that. And Risk, sure. Now Risk, I think's got problems. I don't think Risk is a particularly good design. I think Stratego is a little bit better. If we're talking about like weak sauce war games, that should be a topic at some point. Weak sauce war games. So games that maybe aren't bad, but they're really kind of a war game, sort of. I mean, it's on the same level that chess is a war game. It's so abstract that doesn't tickle the urge for me. Let me put it that way.
Captain Asparagus is, "Hey, you're killing me, man. Putain, putain et patente."
Yeah, I don't know what
Yeah.
any of those words mean.
Well, I do. You know what it
Oh,
is?
this sounds potentially interesting. There's nothing wrong with this. Just as there are many, many, many different chess variants as well. Some of which have like completely different board, different pieces. The only one I ever even tried because I'm not a big chess guy. The only other thing I ever even tried to fool with was Dragon Chess, which it was created by Gary Gygax and was this kind of you kind of had to do this turn it to make the set unless you just did it on a paper. You kind of had to make a set for it that was just a monstrously complicated project. There were like 3 boards. Like the top board was the sky, the middle board was the ground, and the bottom board was the underworld. And all 3 boards had different pieces on them. The land board, the center board had more or less conventional chess pieces, but then in the air you'd have sylphs and dragons and shit like that, and underground you'd have trolls and that kind of thing. It was neat, but and there are people who have put together sets of that, but I did not manage to accommodate that. Huge project to do.
It sounds like the Hasbro's Star Wars game, Queen's Gambit.
I and a lot of other people snickered at that when it came out because it looked stupid, and now it's worth a giant pile of money. I guess we were all wrong on that. No idea whether it's any good or not. But Nightmare Chess. A sort of a cool chess variant that I remember, except it was a video game, was a game called Archon. And there was an Archon 2 where you had like these fantasy pieces, but then when the 2 pieces would meet, you would have like fight it out on a little battle board. It was actually kind of neat. Tank chess. There you go.
Yeah, I mentioned this to Mark Herman. You know what he did? I think he laughed and cut me off.
I don't know how much of a purist Mark is about it, but I know he's a big chess guy.
So. Mark is a huge chess guy.
Okay, yeah, I mean he goes to like the New York City Metro chess.
Well, he's on the board. He's on the board of the New York chess, whatever.
Yeah, and a lot of his designs have a chess-like element to it, which I found sometimes doesn't. It usually works for me, but sometimes it doesn't. Like for Gettysburg, I didn't think it worked for me. But that same system worked, I think, pretty well for Waterloo. So what do I know? What are you pawing at there?
I'm looking at tank chess.
Tank chess. Yeah, I don't know. That's not a thing I would probably play.
Yeah.
Just not into that. I'd play Tank Duel. I haven't played Tank Duel. It's actually a real popular game at conventions. It's like a thing everybody plays at night over a couple of beers or something like that.
Tank Duel.
Yeah, Tank Duel from GMT.
Oh, Mike Bertuccelli's game.
Yeah, it is Mike. It is a Mike Bertuccelli game.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Is there any way you can play like 30 people with that game? Is there any way to finagle something and have a Kursk?
I don't. Well, there's more than 30 tanks at Kursk, but you can run a couple tanks at a time. I think it would probably weigh itself down if it got too big. But I mean, I've seen it played with a dozen people. That's not a problem. I mean, it's just everybody has a tank and y'all shoot at each other, and there's no reason to overcomplicate it, right?
I haven't played that game. Is it cool?
I haven't played it either, but a lot of people love it. There's expansions coming for it, so clearly it did pretty well for GMT.
Yeah. I've been wanting to have Mike on as an interview guy, but we seem not as cross schedules.
Hey, we're still talking about sort of war games at least, so that's something. I don't think so. I think that's just so. William Aarons, this is a good question though. Do block war games where you only see the other side of the units, the blank sides of the blocks, count as a double blind game? I say no, because you can still see the positions of the units. But they're certainly after kind of the same target, right? They're still trying to enhance the experience by increasing fog of war, right? in games, especially where you can have dummy blocks, this might be especially effective. But then you're sort of back to Stratego, aren't you? So, this is good. This is a good point. Last stand at Kursk. They were pretty depleted at the end. That's a good point. So that's Chesapeake something.
Yeah, we're along the Chesapeake. We're along the Great Lakes. It's same system.
Are those Worthington items?
Yeah, Worthington. I'm missing one of them. I mean, look at inside the box. Inside the box, man.
That's very fancy. It's very fancy. That whole Great Lakes part of the War of 1812 is something that Legion's did a show on Legion War Games last night. So check that out if anybody's interested in seeing a complete rundown of all their pre-order stuff. There's one game on the Great Lakes part of the War of 1812 on there, and then Compass has one coming too called 1812 War on the Great Lakes Frontier, I believe. It's Ken Reppel's game. I've talked to Ken about it. It's pretty neat looking. So very, very interested in seeing that whenever it comes out, and it's soon-ish.
Who were the belligerents in the War of 1812?
Well, the Americans and the British, and then the Canadians got involved because they're an angry people. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
But so I do remember when the Americans captured Montreal, though. That was in the Revolutionary War, not the War of 1812.
It didn't last too long, man.
It didn't last that long, and that's true. They were like, "Hey, what are we doing here?"
There was no strip joints back then.
I can understand this sentiment, but there's still plenty of hidden movement games. I mean, again, I'm gonna go back to Flat Top, which I think is just a great experience. Now, on the other hand, let me point out though that we do play Flat Top with a referee, so it functions more like a double blind game than just strictly a hidden movement game. You've also just got various mechanisms to control Fog of War. You've got the very simple OCS rule. This is kind of a common rule in a lot of Dean's designs. Dean Essig, of course, where you just can't examine the opposing stacks, and that's it. But there's the block mechanic. There's the Kevin Zucker favored mechanic, which is either to use the little counter stands or to what is he doing? Or to put little flags on top of the unit so you can't see the opposing stacks, or to use task force markers. This is something that folks have probably recently seen in something like Pacific War, where everything goes in a task force. Pretty much. Well, if it's naval, it goes in a task force. If it's ground, it's just a force. But the distinction is a little bit academic. Or let's say I wasn't crystal clear on what the distinction was mechanically, other than the terminology from the rulebook. And that's a way to control Fog of War too, right? There's just the task forces in if you're playing Great Campaigns of the American Civil War and you're playing one of the big campaigns, I think there's value in using the task forces, the group markers or whatever they're called, but it can get a little stale pretty fast once your opponent, if your opponent knows how to use cavalry to scout those, then it kind of becomes a piece shuffling exercise and it's a little bit less fun. So Beast Lord from Yaquinto. Yeah. I've never played Beast Lord, but I remember the box. It left enough of an impression that I can still remember the box to this day. It was a fantasy offering from Yaquinto, obviously with that names. Doug mentioned Spearhead, which is written orders for the entire game before starting. That's interesting. So written orders is another, to some extent, it's a different way to put yourself in the commander's shoes, other than enhancing Fog of War, right? Are you still monkeying with tank chess?
Yeah. I was gonna say.
I mean, obviously it's good, right? He's like,
well, I've got the Tank Chess Light Edition expansion.
Well, there's a light edition. When did you just flip a coin? Oh, you win again.
I've got the Tank Chess Fun Set.
The tank chess, the fun-size tank chess.
For hidden movement, I have the Mortar Hunt.
Mortar Hunt with a little board that goes between the opposing sides.
Absolutely.
Ugh. I just can't I can muster no interest in that whatsoever.
That's okay.
I gotta tell you. This is a great. I encourage folks who are interested in exploring this particular aspect of war games, the fog of war, right? To take a look at Atlantic Chase. There's a new printing of it coming at some point pretty soon, and it's super abstract, and yet it totally works. And the presentation and development of that game is best in class, I think. You would lose this bet, John. I can tell you that.
A pickle how?
ASL. So concealment in ASL, I don't really consider hidden movement. Now he's gonna go get it. I hope you're happy. Yeah, I wouldn't call this hidden movement, but again, it's trying to give you the same thing that hidden movement gives you, which is enhanced fog of war, right? If you have concealment counters at all, right? They're easy. It's easy to strip concealment too, right? You can't just be concealed everywhere, and that's that. The other player can strip your concealment through various means. This is hidden in place or hidden in position or something like that. Everything's got an acronym in ASL. So, Joyride Russian movie. Okay. I am not familiar with that.
Oh, yeah, I saw the T-34. Yeah, I saw it.
So because the Yellow Devil, first of all, welcome to the stream, I think. A lot of naval games use some variant of hidden movement or enhanced fog of war or something like that. Because that's such a big aspect of the naval war, specifically naval war in World War II, right? Where you don't know where the other guy. Coral Seas. There's a very good YouTube video on Coral Sea if you don't know anything about the Battle of the Coral Sea, by the way. And it's like a perfect situation. Our flat top games play out. I mean, not beat for beat, but the same kind of shit happens. It's like, you've spotted enemy ships, and you send this gigantic air strike force against it, and it turns out to be like one cruiser or an oiler or something like that. So these are we're framing this comment right here.
What's the matter with you?
So yes, it is a compromise, right? Because hidden movement and or plotted movement and or this kind of thing, as Doug mentioned, is a hassle, right? It adds more work to the gameplay. And but not necessarily more work than adding a referee, right? At least in the case of adding a referee, at least somebody doesn't have to worry about it. The referee can worry about all the extra work, right? And it's a ton of work to run that thing at Winterfest. So, yes, I am aware that SFB does have those rules. I've never played with them. I mean, I'm not Mr. SFB by any chance, but I've never heard of those being used, so who knows? Flat Top is a marvelous game, in my opinion. Yes, I will agree with this. Playing double blind in any game, not just ASL, but whatever you're doing with a ref is a totally different experience. And I mean, you see this if you get into like a Kriegsspiel too, right? It's not exactly the same, obviously, but it's a lot of the elements that are highlighted by that experience are the same that you would get playing, say, ASL with a referee, double blind, right? Kriegsspiel, the way it's set up is double blind. It's everybody's blind, right? You're getting your information from the referee or one of the referee's flunkies, and you have very limited intel. So no one knows where Dan has gone. But Farshad Niazi asks if you have more hats, Dan, and the answer is yes, he does. So, can you even talk inside that tin can?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, it's the sound is hardly impeded at all. I bet it gets hot in there, though.
The metal's cold.
I bet. So there is a sense, thinking about this though, there is kind of a sense in which your movement isn't exactly plotted in SFB, but you set up restrictions for yourself at the beginning of the turn, which you then have to go through for, what is it, 32 impulses or whatever it is, right? So, did I allocate power for a high energy turn this turn, right? Um, did I, what is my speed? Can I change that speed? Because I'd have to calculate for that as well. You have to kind of figure all that out at the top of the turn when you do your power energy allocation. So I guess my question on this would be then is, because this is the same is it David Day or James Day as the designer of Panzer? It's the same game. Does the GMT edition still have that feature? I wonder if that's true. I think everybody basically agrees with this. We do like an annual SFP game at Winterfest, and I always post pictures of it. And it's one ship on one ship. You want the Gorn, we'll play the Gorn. And you pick its class of ship, right? If you're playing heavy cruisers or early ships or training ships or dreadnoughts or whatever it is. So now Dan might not have one of these. I don't know anything about that though. There you go. The flea markets in Quebec are amazing, by the way. You never know what you're going to find.
Amazon. Some 3-year-old Indian boy made it.
Probably accurate, actually. If you buy chainmail, chances are pretty good it's made in India or I don't know about India so much, but chances are pretty good it was made. I've been out of this scene for a while, so maybe this is not up to date, but at one point, if you bought chainmail, especially riveted chainmail, which is the better stuff, chances are pretty good that it was made in Pakistan.
Yeah. I mean, these are not the best replicas though, but I mean, we're talking less than $100, man.
That's really not bad. I mean, you don't want to get hit with a Gladius with that thing, but still. I don't even have a Gladius. I've got 4 swords in the house, 4 or 5 swords in the house. I don't have.
Oh, I got a Gladius.
Oh, do you then? Yeah. Where's your tricorn hat, Dan? Don't you have a tricorn hat? That's
No,
that's offensive that you don't have a tricorn hat. This looks shitty. I've seen this. It looks super shitty. I started and it's here. It's upstairs in a garage somewhere. My half done chain shirt. It's more like a chain halter top, to be honest about it, but it miraculously was like the one thing that didn't rust to the point of complete decomposition in the garage at the old place. So this is true. There's already Christmas decorations up everywhere. Costco now has 4 different Christmas trees, and it's still September. So it's not even wasn't even mid-September before we had that.
I mean, could you imagine 30,000 of these guys coming at you, man?
It's almost like they were crazy.
Ow.
You got air conditioning in those things or what?
No, it's cold right now.
So at one point, there was a website. This doesn't exist anymore, but the brand name might still exist. Somebody might have bought the brand off of them, called the Sovietsky Collection. And this was back in the 90s, I want to say. 90s, early 2000s. And I was looking at it. I never bought anything from them. But it was all like old cast-off Soviet military surplus shit. So you wanted Soviet infantry boots. They had that stuff. They had the pins. They had the hats. They had all that stuff. And miscellaneous Rusiana, if you will. So, so that was a guaranteed road to demonetization right there, if you ever see that on the channel. So,
yes.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely true. And a gambeson under it too, because you don't just wear it. I mean, you want some padding under it as well.
Yeah. Could you imagine your nipples getting stuck on that chainmail?
Oh, that's why I don't have pierced nipples anymore. Didn't I tell you that?
Yeah.
So. Just gosh darn it.
Yeah, I should get back into buying some helmets, but cash is really bad.
I can understand that. We're really strapped right. I mean, we're fine, but things are still super tight, and they're going to continue to be super tight. for at least another couple of months if we sell the old place, which is looking like it's on target, believe it or not. I'm not sure what John means by this. That sort of Greek fisherman's type of cap that Lenin used to wear. I actually kind of like that kind of hat, and I wouldn't mind having one of those. But I'm not going to go spend $50 on that frivolous. I mean, I could buy a war game for $50. Why do I need a hat for?
No, you can't buy a war game.
This head of hair, I don't need. Yeah, I absolutely can. On pre-order anyway. A lot of the Legion stuff that we went through had, pre-order prices in the neighborhood of $50 or $60. So, and a couple of them were pretty good sized games too. So Kilroy remembers his Latin. Yeah, that's a little bad karma. Having the hat, that is, I think, a little bad karma, to be honest about it. Depends. I guess it depends on the helmet, but I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be comfortable with that. So, but just go to any Ohio flea market, and you'll see that kind of memorabilia, if you will.
You mean like World War II memorabilia?
I mean, Nazi shit.
Really?
Yeah. And general, I mean, Lorain County Fair, there was a big hubbub a couple of years ago about the Lorain County Fair actually had some people, I don't know if it was one group or multiple tables or what, they had some people selling Nazi shit and people raised a fuss about it. And I think the management disinvited them. Something like that. No, I'm talking about me wearing a chainmail halter top, actually. The old Soviet stuff, maybe not.
God damn, there was a spider in here.
It's a fucking raccoon in this helmet, Dan!
I swear to God, there was a spider in here.
We got a fair amount of wildlife out here. I mean, we are kind of out in the country, so we got a big hawk. Like, I assume it's a red-tailed hawk, because that's the kind we have in Ohio for the most part. But it's a big hawk. I see chipmunks almost every day. Saw one today. We've seen some deers. We've seen frogs. We got frogs. I'm told they're actually toads. Yes, exactly. No one was surprised. The only thing it was a surprise really was that they were there for decades before anybody said anything. So there you go with your nasal. You definitely need a straw with that thing. I don't know why you don't get some. I'm sure there's something you could get to hang those on the wall and put them on the wall behind you.
Well, yeah, I'm rebuilding my room right now. It's gonna be my smoking room, and I'm gonna have all this stuff there. So I plan on doing videos from there.
There you go. So I got it. So I started. I mentioned this on the show last night. I'd like anybody to tell me if I sound echoey at all. Because I did some sound testing and I feel like it's less echoey. I started putting acoustic tiles. I got to replace the light bulb above me.
Yeah, no.
I started putting acoustic tiles around the room, and I think I'm going to get green acoustic tiles and put them on that door, and then the door will be green screened. So that's my lazy green screen sheet, and maybe paint the doorknob green too. I don't know. We'll see. My wife says she doesn't care as long as it's inside this room. So. Yeah, no thanks. No thanks to wearing it, but I would love to go to Gettysburg for obvious reasons. So I'll tell you what, Dan, it's harder to sell your games if they smell all smoky. Nobody knows where he went. He went to the helmet room. Yeah, not in that armor. That's the cheap stuff. You got to have SCA helmets have to be, I think it's 14 gauge. I want to say it's 14 gauge steel, and plastic, aluminum, all that stuff are not acceptable. And the kinds of helmets Dan's buying for $100 on Amazon are not going to be sufficiently thick steel. Let me put it.
No, are you kidding? You're going to get killed. You get hit with this.
Oh yeah, it's like it's made of paper mache.
Well, no.
Yeah, but if I hit you with a bat, it's gonna cave that thing right in.
Now, why the hell would
that's
you
basically what we're talking about. Perfidious Albion mentions the Society for Creative Anachronism. This is almost every chapter does this, by the way, that I've ever seen. Even if they don't have like a local practice, then they're going to the people who do it in that chapter are going to somebody else's practice. So it's rattan fighting, it's stick fighting. It's rattan is, if you don't know, it's a relative of bamboo, except unlike bamboo, which is hollow, rattan is solid. They don't use wood because wood can splinter, get in people's eyes and stuff like that, where rattan will just kind of collapse into, it's a grass, right? It will collapse into a grass. And if you get hit in the head, I mean, you feel it, right? Through that thick ass helmet, right? There are quite strict rules about what kind of protection you're required to wear. I could actually probably do a show about this. I haven't really been involved in 6 years or so, but it's full speed. It's not like choreographed or anything like that. It's full speed, full contact, martial art type fighting.
Well,
it's rattan weapons.
Carl Creeder's son is into that the acronym, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, well, there you go. There's a lot of different ways to have that experience. There's in last decade or two, there's been a resurgence in what gets now called HEMA, historical European martial arts, which is usually longsword stuff or fencing. There's a club here in the Northeast Ohio that is like a HEMA club. So and you can like go see this on YouTube where there's like national teams that go, and the Russians are actually really good at it because they're thugs. They'll just like, steamroll you. Like the competition stuff. One of the guys I knew from the Cleveland group when I lived up there, actually went over and participated or tried out for one of those national teams. So I'm actually pretty happy with Mountain Blade Bannerlord as a sword fighting game, to be honest about it. But that's, reflective of my level of interest in the topic. Yeah, so there's live steel groups too. They cut themselves occasionally. It happens. So I just outgrew the ability to participate in the fighting, meaning I gained too much weight and am a grotesque fat ass now. So this is true. You're not supposed to hit people below the knees or below the elbows. It does happen. There is a mass limit for weapons. These rules, the exact rules vary by kingdom, but there's standards set by the global organization as well. The light above me is really starting to bother me now.
This is my Battlestar Galactica helmet.
I can see that. And they, even on like the ballista bolts and stuff like that, there's a weight limit on those as well. They're only allowed to hit so hard. Not to say that people haven't gotten knocked over with them. There was a relatively chatted up incident where somebody decided he was going to charge the ballista crew on the field of Tenzing. And, normally what'll happen is that guy will walk over and swing, wave his sword around, and the ballista crew will just, oh, we're dead. This guy didn't. He decided he was going to charge the ballista crew, so they shot him in the junk with the ballista. And he was like, good. I'm dead. And he crawled off the battlefield. So that was fun.
Yeah, Doug, this is a German salad.
Okay, so this characterization of the SCA is not accurate. If you've seen videos, you might have seen mostly dudes because, it's 80% or more people doing the fighting. But you go anywhere else at Tenzing, it's pretty even, actually. So. All right, I don't know where Dan has gone again. Yes, this is more or less. More or less.
Okay.
There's because the people have gotten into trouble for violating this too. Let's
okay,
put it
people,
that way.
don't freak out. Don't freak out.
Oh my God, what's he doing? Oh, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. So what you probably ought to tell people is it's not a German helmet. It's like a 1947 Yugoslav helmet or
Yeah,
something like that.
It's a Quebecois motorcycle helmet.
Yeah, yeah. We got those motorcycle guys down here in Ohio too.
Yeah.
A lot of mead, a lot of homebrew in general, but more mead than anything else homebrew because it can be, depending on where you're at, hard to find mead, commercial mead. We actually have, I think, two commercial meaderies in Columbus, and I think there's one up here as well.
You know,
So
what's with Ohio? Is it a neo-Nazi state or what?
there's a lot of crazy and stupid people here in Ohio. I don't know that we're necessarily leading the pack in terms of crazy and or stupid people. I got a lot of friends that did Dagger here, actually. The folks I camped with when I first went to Penzic were a splinter off of Dagger here, well, a splinter off of another splinter off of Dagger here.
What's
So
Dagger?
Dagger here is a what we would call a boffer fighting group. They fight with foam weapons.
Well, that sounds more fun.
Well, it's harder to get hurt. Not certainly not impossible. It's harder to get hurt, and you can wear armor that can sometimes at least feel more realistically historical because you don't have to protect. You don't have to protect your kidneys, for example. Um, so you can if you want to be Mr. Barbarian guy with a big fur cape and you charge out there with no shirt, you can do that.
You know, my helmet collection there, I would love one day to be able to afford um, a Shogun. Um,
Like a samurai helmet.
yeah, man. But we're talking 2, 3, 4 grand.
Ugh. Well, does it come with the samurai too?
Yeah. You want to buy the
The
whole suit? Yeah, it's like 30 grand.
the first year I was at, I fought in the big battle at Penzic. There was like a small unit, like 3, 4, 5 people that all came out, and I'm sure they made this stuff themselves. In full Japanese samurai kit. There was a couple guys with the crossbows with the big shields that they would set the
Bloody
crossbows out of.
hell.
I mean, it's pretty neat stuff,
Phew,
actually.
that's really expensive, man.
I imagine I mean, I don't know this. I didn't talk to those guys, but I would imagine that they made it themselves out of barrel plastic and parachute cable.
Okay.
So you can make some of that stuff. The helmet, I don't know, but certainly like the lamellar armor that they used to wear, you can make that stuff.
Yeah, okay. I don't have the skill. I went on YouTube and there's some guy in Japan who'll do it for you custom, but we're talking 30 grand.
Hmm. Yeah, this has not been my having, participated in 3 or 4 different groups and gone to large and small events. This is not my experience at all. I cannot say that it is not anybody's experience. There's probably some group out there somewhere that's mostly dudes for whatever reason, probably because they aggravated all the women because they're a bunch of tools. But that's just a supposition. So,
And what is SCA?
the Society for Creative Anachronism
Okay.
started in the 60s, mid to late 60s in Berkeley, California. And it became where they had just like a medieval festival in somebody's backyard where they had sword fighting, play sword fighting. Nobody knew what they were doing. They wore Freon Kansas helmets and shit like that. Made armor out of old carpet. I'm not making any of that up, by the way. And then it grew and grew and grew and grew. And, there was then a kingdom everywhere, right? You guys are in, the kingdom of Eldermere up there, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that just covers Ontario, though.
And do they joust?
There, I've never seen it, but so the trouble with jousting is that only certain types of locations can accommodate horses. So normally there isn't jousting at these events, but that's not to say it never happens. But those kinds of things happen at equestrian events.
I mean, can you imagine getting shellacked by one of
Yeah.
those things?
Actually, it looks more like you're a filthy East Kingdomer, actually, from looking at the map.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
kendo, a great day. I've seen kendo, and Isn't it basically it's that bamboo stuff, and it's
Yeah.
one hit and that's it type thing?
I don't know. I don't know if they're bamboo or not. Are they bamboo?
I
Maybe.
think they're bamboo. They ain't katanas, that's for
Yep.
sure.
You're in the East Kingdom. I thought you were in Eldermere. Eldermere is a traditional mid-realm ally. The East Kingdom are bitter rivals.
What the hell are you talking
I'm
about?
just saying there's different kingdoms in the SCA depending on where you're at. And every year, the Kingdom of the East and the Kingdom of the Middle get into a big war in Western Pennsylvania, and they fight over Pittsburgh, and the loser gets Pittsburgh.
And how many people
That
get
was
into
the
this?
original story. I think it's drawn about 13,000 people. I mean, it's
Oh,
not there
I'd love
anymore.
to see that,
But
man.
oh, imagine and being on the battlefield with about 3 or 4,000 people. It's something else. It's something else. Indiana's in the mid realm as well. So's Michigan, by the way.
Can I get some of that on YouTube?
Yes, absolutely, you can actually.
So what's my query?
Search for Pensic, Pensic battle. Search for that. You'll see some fighting. For some reason, I haven't like intended to never talk about this on YouTube. It's just that it's not something I've really been active in for several years. So this is not actually true, but this is the story we always tell people. So since Pittsburgh's in Ethelmark now, so that's been the case since long before I got in.
And does this happen every year?
Except for COVID, yeah. One of them, well, I think one of them got canceled. I think one of them got canceled, and another one got turned into a like private event where people kind of like that WBC, where because of COVID there was no WBC, but a bunch of WBC people showed up anyway and played games all week. There was something like that, but they did have it this past year, this past late July, early August. So the weather's just fucking miserable for the most part.
Wow, this is a real thing, man.
Yeah. And I made my own armor. I made what's called brigandine, which is basically a leather coat with metal plates riveted into it. In my case, it was a big pain in the ass. My armor was in the garage where everything rotted, so it's the leather is absolutely shot, but the steel is stainless. So I'm gonna at some point bust out the angle grinder, blow out all those rivets off or cut them off,
Yeah, but
and salvage those steel plates for something else.
a long sword would cut right through you with that, man.
Not with 12 gauge steel plates.
Seriously?
Yeah, I mean you could stab somebody. You're better off stabbing than slashing with that kind of armor, unless you can get an arm or something like that.
12 man, that must weigh a ton.
It was pretty heavy, yeah. So no argument there. So the where the SCA originally started was Northern California. So that is currently the Kingdom of the West, which is Northern California and most of Nevada. And then there's the Kingdom of Caid, which is Southern California and a little bit of Nevada. And I think maybe it looks like a little bit of New Mexico, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
Look at Stigler and Carl. These guys know everything about this stuff, man.
There you go. San Jose beat West Kingdom. Absolutely. Whole Bay Area, well down the coast, actually. Southern California is Caid. And I got a buddy that lived out in Caid for a while. So I still got buddies that live in Anstiora, which is Texas and Oklahoma, and maybe some little pieces of other states. I'm not sure. They don't line up exactly with the states for whatever reason.
And what does Pensic mean?
It sort of was a play on the Peloponnesian War originally. And this next year's Pensic will be Pensic 50.
Like, how come you guys know so much about this stuff? What's going on?
I mean, I was in it for 10 years, so.
Bloody hell.
There's points so in like an individual duel, what we would call tourney fighting, which is just one person against one person. There's you just strike till you get a good blow, and then you fall over and die in a dramatic fashion. That's basically how it works, and it's an honor system. Some people are more honorable than others. On the big battles, it works the same way on an individual level, but then there's like a battle every day, and there's points associated with the battles and with the rapier tournaments and the archery and all that other stuff. And at the end, they add the points up, and that's what kingdom wins the war.
What Stigler is saying that it's about the experience unless you fight to become king.
So I want to say that every SCA kingdom has always had king by right of arms, which means that twice a year there is a tournament where people fight. However, the tournament works, right? The current king will figure out how the next crown tournament will work, and whoever wins the tournament then becomes the prince for 6 months, and then they are the king for the 6 months after that. And that means that the king and whatever queen he has fought on behalf of, basically are expected to go to every single event, like an event every weekend, and it costs probably 10 grand to be king just because you're expected to travel to every single event.
So what does it take to be king? You got to beat the shit out of someone?
You have to win the tournament.
So beat the shit out of someone.
If you actually beat the shit out of somebody, probably you're not getting invited to the crown tournament, which are generally by invitation. At least in the mid realm, there have been open crown tournaments too, where just any rando could show up.
Well, look, Mark McNair says good luck with the honor thing. So I'm sure somebody's beating the crap out of somebody.
So, but yeah, I mean, I was never in a crown tournament. I went to a crown tournament once, but I didn't fight in the crown tournament. And the king does a lot of like ceremonial. They don't actually run anything, right? They've got officers to do that, but they do. The king and queen do a lot of ceremonial shit and give out favors and stuff like that. It can be fun if you're into the pageantry. If you were totally fascinated by all the hubbub around the Queen Elizabeth and the people walking real slow and all that stuff, maybe you'd find the court scene interesting.
Is there a jester?
I've never seen anybody do that, but I suspect that it happens. Estrella is not spelled that way, but it's pronounced that way.
That's in my family tree, man.
So there's what's that? The court jester?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm shocked. I don't know if any of your viewers are shocked by that shocking, stunning revelation from Dan.
I swear. In Italy, we were court jesters.
Oh yeah. Atlantia is like the Middle East Coast, like North South Carolina, and looks like Virginia and Delaware, that kind of stuff. I've got friends down there too. Yeah. So this is how it's pronounced, Estrella, by everybody I've heard pronounce it. But it's spelled exactly how Doug is spelling it, to my recollection. There are also other like regional wars. Pennsic is the biggest one, between other kingdoms, and I've never been to any of those.
I'm telling you, Christopher, we were in my lineage, we were the king's fool, man.
Yeah. So, well, yes, Dan, I believe you. But so if you are consistently doing this, then you will, in the SCA, you'll pretty quickly acquire a reputation. I'm not going to say this kind of thing never happens. You can also get hit and just decide that the hit wasn't hard enough to penetrate your armor, and it was light, right? You say light, and that means they gotta hit you harder. So what ends up happening is folks don't get invited to things, and or they get their bell rung real hard because they keep calling it light, so somebody's gonna knock their head off. So that is a thing that happens.
You know what? 10 grand there. Have your kid in hockey, and it's going to cost you more than 10 grand.
Oh, maybe. I don't know if this was really a widespread problem, but it is a thing that did occasionally come up. I can say that. I mean, there's a whole movie about this, The Duelist, which is a pretty good movie, by the way, despite the idiosyncratic casting of Keith Carradine and Harvey Keitel as Napoleonic officers. Which is
hold on, that's a who's the director?
That is a Ridley Scott film. I believe it was his first. I believe it was his first like Hollywood. I don't know about Hollywood, but his first like big film.
I hear it's a good movie, man.
So, yeah, it's a very good movie. So, yeah, this is the most famous American one, I would think. But it was a thing that happened every once in a while, but I can't really think of it like affecting something in the Civil War.
Trevor, just get out of here.
So Stigler says The Duelist is excellent, and I agree.
Isn't there one scene where there's a young guy, and I don't know who the hell else is there. Looks like Ray Fiennes. And
Ray Fiennes would have been a toddler at that point.
Well, these two guys take shots at each other, and the young guy keeps missing, and the other guy, by mistake, not by mistake, purposely misses, and they keep going on and on and on and on. Is that the movie?
Are you thinking of Barry Lyndon?
That's what I'm thinking.
That happens in Barry Lyndon too, and which is a fantastic movie.
Okay, I gotta watch it.
Oh, it's a fabulous movie. It's like the lost, unappreciated Stanley Kubrick film. It's brilliantly shot. It's one of two things that I actually like Ryan O'Neal in. The other being A Bridge Too Far, obviously. Right. And Hardy Kruger's in it. Trying to think. What's that?
Isn't Harvey Keitel in that one too?
Definitely not.
Okay.
Hardy Kruger was in it.
I gotta watch Barry Lyndon, man. I swear to
God,
actually
borrowed camera lenses from NASA so that they could film by candlelight. So
Captain Asparagus, maybe I have a screen and I have a projector, and $3.99, eh, John? Yeah, cheap bastard. And you know.
I've been thinking of getting a projector. Actually,
I got a projector because I do movies in the outside.
And, well, that sounds neat.
Yeah, it's cool. But we watch movies like Defendor or Nosferatu, where basically you're not paying attention. You're just having a couple of drinks next to the campfire. Yeah, you're not gonna watch a serious movie there with a couple of buddies. Forget it.
Yeah, maybe not. I hadn't heard about this. J.W. Norton, welcome to the stream. Yes, we mentioned this. Keith Carradine and Harvey Keitel were in The Duelists.
What do you mean it became legal?
J.W. Norton says it became illegal in the Russian Federation as of 2015. I hadn't heard about that. That doesn't mean it's not true. So I'm not sure Barry Lyndon actually won a ton of Academy Awards. I know it was nominated for a bunch, but it's just it's a technically brilliant film. Like I think of, it's not unreasonable to say that some Stanley Kubrick movies are sort of paced slowly. Certainly 2001 is. Not all of them, though. I mean, nobody criticizes the pace of A Clockwork Orange, for example. Or even Full Metal Jacket, for that matter.
I loved Full Metal Jacket.
That's a great movie. The problem with Full Metal Jacket is R. Lee Ermey, actually. And here's let me explain this. In large part due to R. Lee Ermey, so it's a 3-act film, right?
Yeah.
That first act, which is when they're at boot camp,
right,
is so strong that it overwhelms the rest of the film.
I see what you're saying.
The rest of the film is really good, but it's easy to watch it and then kind of just be, wow, you've just had this, like, intense. The intensity of that first act is so high,
phenomenal,
that it kind of tilts the whole movie off balance. The rest of it's really good too, and it's worth watching. It's got Hawk the Slayer in it. What more do you want?
Who's Hawk the Slayer?
Hawk the Slayer, the guy that played Hawk the Slayer. It's only the greatest fantasy film of all time.
I've never seen it.
I believe it is available on Amazon Prime. So worth your time. Do some drinking and or smoking of the devil's lettuce before you watch it. I'm just saying, if you have a little bit of the wacky tobacco first, it will help you to appreciate the film.
I go paranoid. That shit don't work for me, man.
Well, at least have a few drinks first. That is a really good documentary, actually. That Heart of Darkness, about the making of Apocalypse Now.
That was his wife who filmed most of the.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't seen Platoon since it came out a couple years after it came out. I really need to watch that again.
I got same thing.
So you know what I said about our Lee Ermey? He's so good that he overwhelms the rest of the movie.
What's the matter with that guy? Don't understand
That's
English?
all I'm saying. Yeah, Jack Palance is in Hawk the Slayer too. That's true.
I
Man,
love Jack
I hope they
Palance.
paid him a giant pile of money for this thing. And W. Morgan Shepherd, who would later show up in any number of Star Trek productions. He showed up on Doctor Who once. He was on Babylon 5 in 2 different roles, as I recall.
Okay, hold on.
Was also in Hawk the Slayer.
The movie is called Hawk the Slayer?
Hawk the Slayer.
And he was on Babylon 5.
No, yeah.
I watched Babylon 5 like 2 times.
Now, you remember the Soul Hunter?
Well, hold on. Was he with the Shadow?
No, he was the first. He had another role later in the series too, I believe. But the what I remember him for was in like the first 2 or 3 episodes, 3-4 episodes, maybe. There's an episode called The Soul Hunter, where the Soul Hunter goes to the Soul Hunter shows up. They collect souls. These are glowing magical orbs, and he shows up to collect Delen's soul. That's the same guy that was in Hawk the Slayer.
I don't remember.
Babylon 5, which is, might get revived here.
Yes.
I actually retweeted this on Twitter today. I guess we'll close with this. The CW is thinking about picking up a Babylon 5 revival series, like a reboot series. But J. Michael Straczynski, who did Babylon 5, is going to be running it if it happens. And it, we'll very much see what he can do. It's not going to bring back the original cast or anything like that.
I was just about to ask.
Although there's a mystery Babylon 5 project that does bring back the surviving people from the original cast that nobody's talking about and nobody will talk about until next year. So,
Alan Salazar, the PBS America and the Holocaust this week. God, that's going to be horrible. I used to be into the Holocaust and watching documentaries, and there was one documentary.
Now, Dan doesn't mean it exactly the way he said, where he used to be really into the Holocaust. I'm sure he doesn't mean it that way. I'm
talking about, I wanted to know, historically, I wanted to know. And I remember there was a 4-part series, I don't know where. There was no narration at all except the cities that were mentioned or the towns that were mentioned, like Bergen-Belsen or Trobibor or something like that. And I was 15 years old, and I thought it was all American footage, and they didn't have any Russian footage. And man, I was 15, man, and I couldn't believe it. I think it was 4 hours, not 4 episodes, 4 hours. It was horrible, horrible, horrible.
It was horrible. We agree.
Horrible.
Yes, this is actually true too. There was 2 of those movies, believe it or not, I think. And I think he was in one of the 2. I forget which one. I don't believe I've actually seen them. And if I did, they were bad. So I don't really remember anything about them. All right, folks, we are out of time. We did talk. We did get at least 5-10 minutes on the topic of hidden movement games and other stuff before we digressed into random hookers and blow talk. So I would like to thank everybody for coming by. Don't forget to tune into the show next week at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Dan's channel, and then we will be back here a week from today, or 2 weeks from today. And in the meantime, check out the unboxing, the non-blue unboxing now in theaters on Thursday. And I've got an interview with Paul Daniels, the designer of Bear Trap, coming from GMT as well, coming out tomorrow. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you next week.